Hello, Internet. It's time for another Wednesday's serial. I'm going to stagger things a bit. I was planning on trying to do just talking about one comic because that seemed to work really well last week and got a lot of reception. But I kind of put out there feelers like, what do people want me to talk about? And it's like Howard the Duck. I didn't even see that at the shop. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Suicide Squad. I'm like, oh, right, there's a lot of comics I don't buy that people are interested in. But someone did want me to talk about comics you don't normally hear about. What I'm going to do is talk about my stuff that isn't Marvel or DC this week, because that kind of ended up being notable, and there's one particular I really want to dig into, and one that I think people would be interested about regardless, and just seems to be lining up, just so you guys can kind of get in my head of where I'm coming at for the video this week. But this week was a super huge Spider-Man week, and it got me thinking, I want to talk Spider-Man with people. But, like, talk with people about stuff. And we have the Bat Chat, which is, alright. But, like when it comes comparing Batman to Spider-Man, you know what would be better than Bat Chat? A Spider Chat. Or, a web talk. I don't know. There's some horrible pun to be derived from that, I'm sure. I haven't put my mind to it yet, though. So anyways, if any of you out there would be interested in some sort of spider chat thing, let me know, because I think that could be a good time. First up, Ghosted 18. If you have been reading this, it feels like there's kind of a few separate stories, but now we're in this last one that seems to be tying together elements from all of them. It feels like this isn't as strong as where it started, and I'm hoping this arc ends around 20 or 21, somewhere around there, and when that happens, I'm really hoping the series just kind of ends, so it just kind of ends strong, and the creators can move on. I can't really say too much about the issue without spoiling it, because it really all kind of builds to something super climatic in a way. So, yeah. Next is Hellbreak, which is a Colin Bunn story. He's a writer who's been kind of hit or miss with me, and when he hits, it's never that hard. I know a lot of people really love Six Gun. This is definitely playing on more of the horror elements, but in a way that's not... It's just gunplay. But we start here with kind of a retelling of Orpheus and him, that tale where he's able to walk his lover out of hell, Hades, and all he has to do is make the journey without looking back, and he does, and she gets left behind, and blah. But then we get to this talk of Merrick Proctor, who's our head money guy for this initiative, basically. And he has this thing talking about how he's kind of with the church, but through financial means. And he's talking about how he has theological freedom, and he's saying that this myth he just told them could be derivative of what would become modern Christianity, or that Christianity's derivative of something greater. I think what the comic's trying to get at is that, like, all kind of myths and religion of that lore standard kind of play into this world in a way, is what I guess they're trying to get at. Just when I was reading that, I was thinking, well, of course Christianity's derivative. It's Judeo in nature, right? Like, and then that's not even getting into any pre-Christian stuff, and just everything I know about the development of it just was getting in my way the entire comic, and they try to do some over-the-top stuff, and I guess trying to say that there are other religions to be talked about, but it's all heaped in just pure demonism and the occult, and with crosses and all that. It's all very Christian in nature, and it's not delving past that. And since it's pretty much just gunplay with demons from there on out, I don't know, this didn't grab me. I could see where a lot of people would be interested in this sort of thing. If this sounds at all up your alley, check it out. It's $1. That's part of the reason I did. But I'm definitely not going to be continuing, because this is not the sort of occult book that I find engaging at all. How fitting is it that I go from a book talking about the occult like that to Rachel Rising, which talks about the occult in a way that I deeply appreciate. In this issue, man, this stands out. If you haven't tried it, you could actually just read this issue and see if this is to your liking. It starts out with a quote, "Man is the cruelest animal," Friedrich Nietzsche. And we go immediately into this talk of how all these cultures have this entity, this being that is their very definition of evil. And you see all these names, but it's talking about this need, and in a way it's manifested because this is dealing with the occult directly, but it also kind of speaks to how that entity manifests itself in us when we're letting the darkness in, when we let the idea of killing someone consume us, and that idea. And it's very powerful, and then it's played out throughout this issue, and that idea makes it human. It's not some gunplay, oh, we're killing demons. It's the idea of the evil that lurks within us, and how do we stop it? Not how do we kill death, right? How do we stop that? And that's a key difference that makes for a more interesting story. There's a lot more layers going on here, but I think that juxtaposition kind of talks about why horror and action have to be balanced very carefully if you want to make something interesting happen with that story. And now for something completely different. Shutter number 10. I heard Ghost Critic mention that he didn't really like this cover. I think it's fitting. It's colorful and it stands out on the shelf, so there's that. I will say, though, that there was a frame in here that I thought could have made a better cover, which was this just field of Kate's with the "I'm alone." Like, how gripping would that be? And then kind of just like Shutter, and just move this up a little bit. I don't know. But this is a really interesting issue, continuing right out of the last one. They're moving to the dreamscape, and just that idea is what consumes this issue and makes it interesting. And that may not sound like much, but it's rare to kind of get comics that put such weight on setting. And that's the sort of thing that you kind of need to build up a universe, right? Like, you need to make the places important, you need to make the people fleshed out, you need to do that. And spending some time there to make this more interesting, I think, is great. So, I mean, Shutter, just another huge point for something really creative and out there in the comics realm that we don't see enough of. So, awesome stuff. This was the big one for me this week because I've never really read Spawn before. I tried reading a trade and couldn't really get into it. And I've heard a lot of people talking about Spawn, so with this coming, I thought it would be worth a one-shot. And Spawn Resurrection took me by surprise. I don't love this comic. It's not my new favorite thing, but I was really impressed by this. This seems to be taking, so Al Simmons apparently shot himself This is all prologue. And some other guy's been holding the mantle for a while. But God, in the form of Al's childhood dog, comes and has this talk to him. It's kind of interesting. I don't know how these stories go, but God kind of starts very loving and warm and ropes him into this conversation where he supposedly wants to be left alone. Like the, reluctant hero. And then God's language kind of ramps up and his tone ramps up and he gets more angry, more wrathful. Because he starts very like, oh, well, aren't you an angry and oh, this. And by the end of it, he's saying, like, you have to go kill these demons. And there's some stuff in here about choice and about how God made himself forget so that people could have choice. And there's some interesting stuff. I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to play out. If you haven't really read Spawn before and you're curious, go find this. This is a $2.99 issue, and this is I think slightly oversized. It felt like a lot of content. This is really interesting, and I believe this introduces something into the Spawn mythos where God leaves Spawn a sword that's supposed to grant him more power. And I know just from having heard some things like Spawn is of Hellspawn, so him having a sword granted by God, which I assume is with righteous heavenly power, would have some significance and have some play. And seeing where that ends up, I'm sure, should be interesting. It should be part of the mythos, but I don't know for sure, obviously. I'm just going off of what's in here. So, yeah, I'm interested to read this, but I feel like in order for me to enjoy this more, I do have to go back, and this makes me curious to go back and read more Spawn, but I'm kind of curious where I want to start, because I know the original stuff isn't so much my speed. So, guess I'll be looking into that, and I'm kind of curious once I get on the trade route if I want to be picking up Spawn in issues, if I'm going to be okay just kind of waiting for collections to come out. So, whew, there you be.